Welcome everyone to the first episode of Nature of the Business, a podcast by YGN. I'm David. I'm the COO of YGN.
And I'm Monique. I'm the CEO and founder of YGN.
And we're really excited to finally be doing this. This is something that we've talked about for some time. Monique, why don't you share with the listeners what the thought is behind the Nature of the Business podcast?
When I first started YGN, I spent a lot of time on Instagram, kind of sharing how I was building the business, sharing how I was designing products, sharing the behind the scenes of shipping. And I don't get to do a whole lot of that anymore. And a lot has happened in the past couple of years since we really started scaling the business up. And so I really just think it's a good time to start sharing again and start learning from our customers and allowing our customers to learn from us. And so I think it's going to be exciting to talk through everything we've learned in the past few years over the course of building the business.
Cool. Yeah, and I think if you are a YGN customer and you've ever wondered, how does my YGN churn get to me, or how did they come up with that? If we make mistakes, why are we doing something behind the scenes? Hopefully we can give you a view behind the scenes of the day-to-day work as we build YGN. With that, Monique, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you, Monique Little?
I was born in New Jersey. I went to Rutgers University for college. I got a degree in business economics. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I have always been terrible at working for other people, so I ended up being an entrepreneur. And I think that's the basics of it, of who I am. Over the past 7 years, YGN has become a huge part of my life, and it's become a huge part of everything that I've learned as a professional. I would say that's pretty much it.
I'm David. I'm the COO of YGN. A lot of my work with YGN is around marketing and around brand and around kind of strategy, supporting the YGN team in thinking about where do we fit strategically, what are partnerships, and how do we continue to grow in a way that fits the brand. That's my work with YGN, my background. I happen to be Monique's brother, so we are brother and sister. We've known each other for our entire lives, and we did both grow up in New Jersey, and that's me. I'm really passionate about supporting cause-driven brands, and YGN is certainly that. So we're excited to be bringing this to you. Monique, what do you hope people take away from this Nature of the Business podcast?
If you're here to get to know more about us as YGN, I hope that you take away that we really are a family-owned, family-run, community-driven brand. And I hope you really get to know us because we love people and we love the people that we serve. If you're here just to chat about business, I hope you are comforted in the fact that everyone goes through shit and that we can go through shit together and learn from it. It depends on who you are, but we've got a little something for everybody.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what we think about internally is we've had the opportunity to be able to be in rooms and grow a fast growing brand and raise capital and open a factory. And there's just a breadth of experience that it doesn't typically get shared. So if you're an entrepreneur or you're wanting to build a business, I'm personally hoping that you can learn from some of our mistakes, or as Monique mentioned, you can find camaraderie in some of our experiences. Monique, what's YGN to you as a brand and as a company?
To me, YGN is a innovative hair accessory brand. I think it's interesting because they say that it really doesn't matter what the brand is to you, it matters what it is to your customer. And I think that we, to date, have become a head wrap brand, and that's what we're known as. But we have so many innovative products. What we try to do is think about the unserved needs of our community, which is ethnic hair care. When I started, there was no attractive hair accessory that also didn't dry your hair out or make your hair look crazy when you took it off. So I started with the satin line pre-tied head wrap at the time where head wraps were like really trendy. But it's evolved, right? Started with head wraps, but now we have satin lined turbans for men, which wasn't a thing, pre-tie turbans for men. We also have silicone-lined swim turbans to protect your hair in the water. Also wasn't a thing. So we try to think about things that our audience wants, but doesn't have yet, simply because no one's innovating for the market.
Very cool. Who are YGN's customers? As you mentioned, we started out with head wraps, and if you're listening, you probably think about us as a head wrap brand. But who are our customers if you had to describe them?
Man, we have a few different audiences, right? We definitely have the natural hair market, women who wear their hair naturally and might need an easy solution to either wrap it up or protect it throughout the day while they're out and about. But then we also have our sleep products, who are really for everyone who wants to protect their hair at night. And then we've got our fashionable guys, who are our men's halo turban. So we talk to a few different people, but overall, it's people who care about their hair and care about how they look.
And I think that part of it, like you said, it's a lot of people. What are your thoughts on trying to serve the breadth of types of people that YGN serves?
Well, it's challenging at first because of the way that we market. We market really heavily on Facebook, and Facebook tends to like to pick an audience and pick a product and go for it, right? But we have lots of audiences and lots of products. But I think as we've started to think about building a more well-rounded marketing program, we have gotten a lot better at finding the commonalities. And it could be like a Black woman with curly hair, or it could be just like a white woman who wants to wear a bonnet or whatever, finding what the commonality is between those people and telling that story across the brand. So it's taken some adjustment, and it's been a bit of a learning curve, but it really depends on what your story is, on how you tell it and who you tell it to.
Yeah. And we think a lot about, and we talk a lot about our day ones. Who are the day ones of YGN? Who are our first customers in YGN?
So my ride or dies. There are still a few of those out there. There was one, we had a customer email in the other day, and I was like, man, she was literally one of my first customers. And it's interesting, those were people who were really interested in supporting a woman of color who was starting something. Because if you look back at the original product that I was putting out there, it really wasn't that great. But they were really super supportive. Like, they bought these $30 hand stitch head wraps. Literally, I was stitching them with a needle and thread in my hand in the living room. And the product that got there, it was my best at the time, but it wasn't the best product that you could find. I would say there were really supportive people who were really interested in backing someone who was going for it. They were anywhere from like teachers to moms to anybody. I only sold women's products at the time, but they were everyone, but they were on a common journey with me.
I love that. And I think that's something that a lot of times you're surprised when you put a product out there, how it resonates with people. But I think that authenticity, and that you could assume that if you have a need, that other people have that need. When you were starting YGN, why did you even start it? What made you say, okay, I need to stitch this thing and make it?
I had just had my first child, and because I was a natural hair care girl, I just honestly didn't have time or energy for the regimen of it anymore. Natural hair requires a regimen. And so I started wrapping my hair, and I liked the look, but I wasn't actually great at wrapping. It required watching a whole lot of tutorials, and you would be out during the day and it would fall apart, or like this wasn't super convenient. You take it off and your hair would be all broken and dried out, especially using like the Ankara fabrics. And there was just so much wrong with the experience. And because it was a popular way to accessorize your hair at the time, I figured I'm probably not the only one who wants something easier than this, and something that's not just like a beanie that you're walking out the door and you just look homely. And it was just an idea that I had that I thought was a good idea. I had this entrepreneurial spirit. I had a little bit extra time on my hands, and I put it online, and surprisingly, you're right, people picked it up. They liked it. And a lot of the comments on the original ads were, "Where has this been all my life?" Literally in those words of, man, like, I need this now. I can't believe it's satin tied. I can't believe it's pre-tied, satin lined and pre-tied. And it really did hit a nerve in the natural hair community.
Yeah. How long ago was this?
This was in 2016.
Okay. So 8 years ago now.
8 years ago now, yeah.
It's almost a decade been at it.
That's crazy, right?
You were a natural hair girl. Where did you start your natural hair journey? What kind of prompted that?
I started my natural hair journey in high school, which was a big deal at the time because no Black people, Black women or Black girls were wearing their hair naturally. It was to the point where there was like literally what is now the ethnic hair care aisle in the drugstore was like 3 products on the shelf at the time. So there was nothing for people who were looking to wear their hair that way. And it required me to do a whole lot of digging in YouTube and figuring out, like, I remember the first website I pulled up when I was thinking of how to wear my hair naturally. And it was like this really bare bones text only website. And it showed how to do like a hide puff on your natural hair. And it was only one, I used to buy my hair products from Miss Jessie's, which was the first natural hair care, like curl cream, really online. And when I remember it was just like the infancy of what it's become now. It's really like people have really used it and really grown it, but it was really in its infancy at the time when I did it. And I went natural because I was in the minority in most of the schools that I went to. And so I had never really thought about my image as a Black woman, my beauty image as a Black woman, until I got to high school and wrote a paper on Black women entrepreneurs. And I had stumbled across Madam C.J. Walker, which dropped me into this rabbit hole of natural hair care and all types of negative issues about Black beauty, but also positive issues about people who are breaking out of those molds and standards of beauty and things like that. And somehow I ended up here. But that's what started my journey in celebrating natural hair, is just learning about myself, learning about the standards of beauty I was currently living in, looking at that from a different lens, and making a decision for myself that I just wanted to do something that was more celebratory of who I naturally was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, my background has been in marketing and in technology. And as a software engineer, I always built software that would help companies with their marketing. And honestly, until I started working with you, I didn't really understand the breadth. Even being a Black man, I didn't understand the breadth of the issues and the dearth of products that were out there and the lack of innovation in this space and the pain points that there are. I think it's an interesting thing that, you know, even though we're brother and sister, even I didn't really grasp it fully. And growing up, there's always like, okay, like you go, Black men you go to the only go to Black barbers and you wear do-rags. And that's for the most part at the time, Black men weren't wearing locks and braids and all those things back then when we were growing up. So at the time, it was just like, you go to a Black barber and you wear your do-rag. That was Black men's hair care. And so that's also evolved a lot over time. So it's interesting kind of listening to how you came to why you wore natural hair. What was the rest of your childhood? What was it like growing up?
I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. I went to private schools most of my life. We didn't have a whole lot of extended family, so I was pretty close with my nuclear family, 5 of us, 1 brother, 1 sister, 1 mom, and 1 dad, in a decent house and a decent neighborhood. And that was about it.
Do you feel like you had a fortunate upbringing?
Yeah, I would say so. Our parents were immigrants, And they came over and they worked really hard, and they did everything they could to provide us with everything we needed. I never felt like I was rich or anything. I went to school with a lot of wealthy people. I also was never starving, and I always had great opportunities to do great things. So I consider myself to be fortunate. I don't take that for granted. I think I've lived long enough to see people who have had it much worse than me. So I would consider myself to be a fortunate person.
What about your childhood do you think, if you had to trace back, led to you becoming an entrepreneur?
It's interesting. I think that you and I are 6 years apart, right? So as I was coming into thinking about what I wanted to do, you were coming home from college and being like, oh, and there's like this thing called YouTube, and I'm going to start this business with videos. Like, you had all these interesting ideas. And I thought that was interesting. Sitting around the table and talking about things like that was very interesting to me. So I think that was partially it, is learning about those type of things. And I think I've always thought outside the box, and I've never really wanted to sell my time necessarily for money.
How many jobs did you actually have before you started YGN?
I did a count a couple years ago, and we think it's 32. Over the course of, I guess when I started YGN, I was probably I was 29. So over the course, I would say 15 years, 32 jobs.
So you started working when you were 14?
Started working roughly like 15. Yeah, 14.
14 or 15. And so having that breadth of experience, what do you think, one, it says about you, and then two, what are those experiences rolled up together? How do they inform how you approach things now?
I would say that I pull from a lot of different areas. Like, most of my experience has been customer service, and because we're such a customer-facing company, I've been able to really draw from what I learned from that. And I have always been the type of person, even if I'm just like in a call center, I'm always watching how systems work. And so I tend to pick up on patterns of, oh, this is what they're doing because this is what's happening at whatever level. And so I see on the operations level how people handle things, and it has really rolled into how I manage things within my own business. And same thing, I've done some supply chain jobs. So like, one of my first jobs out of college was at a company called BASF, which was a really large chemical supply chain company. And so I learned a lot about purchase orders and planning and placing POs and receiving POs and made to order. We did a lot of made to order products at BASF and managing clients at a high level. And so I've had a ton of experience within the corporate and non-corporate setting and in the retail setting of operations and customer service. And it's really helped me to think through all the different areas of my business. And it's probably the reason why I approach my business in the way I do. Most people, when they start an e-commerce business, will just go outsource pretty much everything. And I tend to lean towards doing everything in-house, for better or worse. So it's probably the reason why I approach it that way.
As you think about the transition from having 30 some odd jobs to YGN, how do we think about your work on a daily basis? What's your North Star as the CEO of YGN?
My North Star, we have a decent headcount for a company of our size. We have hired a lot of people, right? Manufacturing level, operations level. And I think that having worked so many jobs has given me, for some reason, the desire to create a workspace that really serves the people that are working within it. And so that's the way I want to influence the people around me, is creating a space where people feel like they can grow and be comfortable, and the space where they spend 40 hours of their week really does feel like a place where they can be safe. And so that is altruistically what I have tried to do internally. Externally, I think the skills that I've picked up along the way have just lent to me being in retail and customer service. And because I know about the natural hair space, that's where I landed. And I guess I face two directions at most times as a CEO, but those are the things that really drive me.
You mentioned creating a space where people can work. What else pushes you forward on a day-to-day basis as an entrepreneur? Obviously, we know there are lots of ups and downs, and it's easy to keep on going when you have the wind at your back and you have momentum. But when things are hard, what gets you up and keeps you going?
I've been fortunate to have a lot of support from family and even our employees who have become family. And so the blood, sweat, and tears that other people have put in, I just don't feel comfortable leaving that just because I'm uncomfortable. If I can keep going and they're going to keep going with me, I'm just going to keep fighting until everyone gets out of this what they need to get out of it. I think that's what really drives me on the bad days, is knowing that there's still people beside me and we're still alive.
I think that's real. Every entrepreneur needs a team. And I always say, even LeBron James or Michael Jordan, they didn't win championships until they put a team around themselves and a good coach and all those things. I think it is like that symbiotic relationship that it's funny. You're supporting the team, but also thinking about them supporting you as a CEO and a founder. I think that's a really powerful idea. And so it's not always all roses. Given that is a fact, for the listeners listening, what is a common misconception that people have? Two common misconceptions. One, about being an entrepreneur, and then two, about YGN that people have, that if you could just say, hey, it's not, this is what it's really about. What's that? What are those misconceptions about being an entrepreneur, and then YGN specifically?
About being an entrepreneur, that's a good one. Misconceptions about being an entrepreneur. I'm going to skip to misconceptions about YGN first. I think that because we tend to try to present to the public, and I think we come off as a much larger operation than we are, or we've come off as like we're just shipping something and we just have a website up. So I think that the misconception is that there's not like real people and real hard work behind this business. And man, this business has become like a living organism of production and marketing and shipping all in one building. And we're all just working hard every day to make this thing happen. So I wish that we would have been able to show, or that we could show more of that to our customers, because I think that the impression is that, oh, you just get this made in China somewhere and then you ship it to us. And it's not. Like, we really do put a lot of hard work and care into the products that leave our building.
Yeah. There's something to that idea of the brand story. And sometimes you focus so much on the product, any company, and to your point, it's not just about the brand, it's about the fact that we care at YGN, and a lot of the decisions that we make them with deliberate thought. And it's like you said, there are paths that probably would be a lot easier making stuff in China, like you said, not innovating, but it's not authentic to who you are, and it's not authentic to what YGN is. And so I think staying true is an important aspect of all of that. I think this is fun to just talk. It's fun to just have these conversations. What do you hope this dialogue becomes between us and people?
I think that we can always learn from it. We don't usually take the time, specifically you and I, to talk just about what's driving us, or like philosophical thoughts about business, like stuff like that. It's usually like, down to business, we have a meeting, we talk. So I think that there's value in that, in having those conversations, and we can learn from each other in that, and people can engage in that dialogue, and we can learn from them. And I think that just sharing ideas in general is valuable. It's valuable, just as valuable as the nuts and bolts type of chats.
Yeah, I agree. Calling us out and having a a conversation as if we were just having a conversation, but at the same time, hopefully people can listen in on the conversation that we would have otherwise. What do you want to talk about next? We're going to show up next week at the same time. What should we talk about next week?
We talked a whole lot about me. I think we should talk more about you next time.
Okay.
Talk about your background.
All right. I think that's a fair ask. And there's another saying, which is like, enough about me. What do you think about me? Yeah, let me do that. Thanks so much, Monique. Thanks for the time. And I'm really excited about this. And to everyone who showed up today, thanks for listening. And if you're on YouTube, thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.